Good evening. This is Rahul Reddy. We're live here from Houston, Texas. Every Tuesday, we do bring in immigration updates. Today, along with me is my business partner, Stephen Brown. Stephen, what do we have today to discuss?
Yeah, we're going to be talking a lot. You know, the last live we did, we were talking about the election, and now we know where the election has headed. We are going to have a President Trump 2, as well as a Republican-controlled Senate and probably a Republican-controlled House. So we're going to talk about how that's going to impact employment-based visa holders, what changes could be coming, and the impacts that people should be looking out for.
So let's first look into the things what Biden administration has brought in the past 4 years, Stephen. A couple of things that benefited the H1L1s, F1s, and B2s, and certain other people that especially our audiences are, is that he allowed people to change the status to B2 from H-1B or H-4 and convert back into H-1B without leaving the country. Previous to Biden administration, when the B2 was pending, they didn't use to adjudicate the H-1B change of status, and people have to leave the country and come back into the United States. Do you think so that Trump could change it?
I don't think it's going to be the top of the priority list, but I could see it happening. And it really just depends what the focus on. Remember, this idea of using the B visa in the US to look for jobs and then, hey, we'll kind of bundle the B2 and the H-1B back together. That is completely policy driven, listed on a website. That's it. It's not regulatory. It's not anything. So whoever's in charge of USCIS on January 20th could just go through with a pen and say, nope, not doing that, and get rid of it. Again, I don't think it's on the top of his priority list. I think the administration has campaigned on and will immediately be focused on the border, but we've got a running list for all things that have happened so we can be prepared and not be resting on, oh yeah, we've been doing this for a couple of years now, it's safe. It could go away at any moment.
What about the 5-year EAD and AP approvals? Since the Biden administration took the approach that, hey, adjustment of status is taking a long time, instead of giving them each person one year approval, he started giving 5-year EAD and AP approval. What do you think so about that?
I could, again, another thing just by policy, right? Although I think there's a regulation that's coming or did come on this because of the long delays. Again, I'm hopeful that the administration keeps that, but we can see, I mean, again, if his whole thing is I'm going to undo everything Biden did, and he's getting Stephen Miller as his chief of staff for public policy, that's a guy who doesn't much care for any sort of immigration.
Coming to Stephen Miller, Stephen, according to the Stephen Miller, that obviously right now, Trump administration already said that on the day one that he comes to power, that is on January 20th, he's going to issue an executive order that will ban the birthright citizenship. At this point of time, anybody who's born on the soil of United States gets automatic U.S. citizenship, irrespective whether the parents are legal in the United States, the parents are illegal in the United States, the parents are green card holders or not. Every person who's born in the United States gets the citizenship. Now, he said they're going to do an executive order to ban the birthright citizenship. Can you explain more what could happen? And we'll step into Stephen Miller's ideas. First, we'll look into Trump ideas. So Trump never said he's going to go back and kind of denaturalize the people. But he said that going forward from the time he comes to the power, he will ban the birthright citizenship.
So I want to start with a couple things. One, I 100% agree. I think there is a near zero, but never a 0% chance that they will not go back and say, hey, this 7-year-old kid is no longer a citizen because of our new interpretation of the 14th Amendment. I don't see that happening. I think it would be from X day forward, what is their interpretation? I think it's going to be very difficult for them to do. Birthright citizenship is rooted in the 14th Amendment. This was an amendment that came about post-Civil War, gives us a lot of rights. The citizenship clause, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and any of the states that they reside. What I think, if I could see the Stephen Miller led administration, the Trump administration doing, is really taking issue with and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. There are certain classifications that don't get birthright citizenship, such as, diplomats, because they're not subject to the laws of the United States. And so the Trump administration could take a very extreme stance that, let's say, well, if you don't have one citizen parent, one LPR parent, you don't get it moving forward. I think what their primary focus on, Rahul, when they talk about birthright citizenship, is two things. I think it is birther tourism, which is something we saw kind of pop up during the Trump administration. The first go around, people come in on B visa while they're 8-9 months pregnant, have a baby here, it kind of works out. There were a lot of stops at the port of entry for that. And I think the other focus is going to be on, folks who entered without inspection properly, waiting for removal. The 14th Amendment and this, and I don't want to get too on my soapbox, the United States had this case, the Supreme Court, had this case in 1898, holding that English common law would govern this interpretation. And that's why we have the birthright citizenship that we have today. This is a right that goes back to the Roman era, on birthright citizenship. I think it's going to be an uphill battle. It's not something personally I think is likely to be successful. You can never tell, especially if there's a lot of changes in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But
Supreme Court has also changed a lot, Stephen.
What?
Supreme Court has changed a lot too since last Trump's to right now. We had some justices that are probably leaning more towards Trump's side. I see a question that is coming out, and that's what I wanted to address. Sumit is having removing birthright citizenship. Does it only affect illegal immigrants, or will it affect legal as well? Sumit, it's not clear at this point of time if it's going to affect the illegal immigrants or also legal immigrants, though. In the speeches, though, they did said illegal immigrants only, but when you look into the policy, though, it said that one of the parent has to be a green card holder for the child to become the U.S. citizen. So it's a bit confusing what they're speaking and what they are putting in the writing. So once the executive order comes in, we will be able to determine whether the legally present here in the United States kids will be able to get the birthright citizenship based on the executive order. Now, it's already been, Stephen already said that this executive order will be challenged in the courts, and it will have it will have to go through a lot of legal process. We yet don't know whether it's going to sustain, but there are indications because of the Supreme Court leaning more towards Trump's side right now. There is a chance that it may stand. But the question is whether it will bar the legally present here. We don't know yet. We don't know.
One of the things that I've seen in some articles talking about this, that if talking to some of these articles have talked to some of the folks close to Trump, it's that he might direct Department of State to not issue passports for these individuals. That way they don't have a U.S. passport. And I don't think he can necessarily, the law is pretty clear on that as well. But again, we'll see. And again, Rahul nor I are in these meetings. A lot of what we'll talk about today are either guesses about what was on the regulatory agenda in the first administration that he didn't get to, things that he tried to get to but lost in court. So we're taking some guesses here, that's for sure. But we're going to stay on top of it. That I can promise.
Stephen, one of the concerns that I have is that the Biden administration, for protecting the children, Child Service Protection Act, he said even if the filing dates are current and they file the 485 application, though, the children are protected, though. That's something that I'm a bit concerned whether this administration is going to take back on it. Another thing is that they have the Biden administration has installed premium processing for national interest waiver, EB1C petitions, and F1 and OPT STEM extensions. I don't know whether Trump administration is going to continue with them. Now, one thing that I'm particularly concerned about is that you were the lawyer for the class action suit for Iduki settlement. That is, that when the H1, H4, and EAD has been filed together, all the three cases should be approved together, is what you were the lawyer in the class action suit. Now, can you explain, is that, since it comes from the court, does the Trump administration can undo it, but there is some clause in there, some timeline in there on the settlement. If there is a timeline, why was there a timeline? Can you explain more on that?
Yeah, so let's go back. So everything was great. This is how they used to do H1, H4, H4 EAD. They would kind of bundle everything together. It's with one officer, makes it a lot easier, more efficient. 2019 rolls around, Trump decides, I'm going to have biometrics for every I-539, people that are already in the U.S., Rahul. And this created a slowdown for H-4, H-4 EAD. They said, well, we're going to try to process them as quick as we can. And what we got was year and a half long delays. We had done a lot of lawsuits, finally got a ton of data, and did a class action. The government finally capitulated and said, hey, we'll go back to the old way. That's what you guys want. But DOJ was adamant that they didn't want to make this a permanent settlement. And so it currently expires in January of next year, regardless of the administration change, whether it was a Harris or Trump administration or a Biden, right? Remember, originally there was thoughts he was going to rerun. Being proactive on this, we've already reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office about this. We'll see. Again, I don't know. We'll see. Remember, this was part of Trump wanting to do away with the H-4 EAD. This was a proposed regulation for many, many regulatory agendas. They couldn't, the rumor I always heard is they couldn't get past the economics test, right? It has a horrible economic impact to get rid of H-4 EAD, which is why they could not really get rid of it. But how do you get rid of a program without getting rid of it? You slow it down. And that's kind of what they did with this biometrics problem. So we're, again, another long thing that on our list, we've got the Google Doc pulled up of things that we are tracking to keep an eye on.
So, well, you put a bomb on everybody by telling that the Trump administration wanted to get rid of the H-4 EAD. Can you explain, can he do it? Will he do it? What's the process for it?
Yeah, let's kind of talk about the three EADs that I think I've seen a lot of questions on, if you don't mind, Rahul. OPT, STEM OPT, H-4 EAD. All three of those are created by regulation. They are not in the statute at all. Now, H-4 EAD was kind of created by USCIS's, DHS's interpretation of AC-21. If you remember back to AC-21, it's all about retaining high-skilled immigrants. So, well, when we're stuck in this backlog that is insane, right? Congress is working with 1970 numbers in 2024. We have insane backlogs that need to change. What's one way to keep high-skilled workers here? We'll allow spouses to work while they're waiting in this process. And it's great because a lot of high-skilled immigrants have high-skilled spouses. So it makes sense. So they created the H-4 EAD through regulation. F1, the OPT, and STEM OPT also created by regulation, not in the statute. Now, this is very different than, let's say, L2, Rahul, which is one of the things we sued on. L2, spouses by statute, by Congress, have work authorization. E-spouses have work authorization through Congress, but H-4 EAD, OPT, STEM OPT have regulatory constructs rather than statutory. So what does that mean? Just like they were created through regulation, they can be removed through regulation. I anticipate this would be something also subject to a lot of litigation and fought out because there is a lot of reliance. There is a lot of look at what Congress intended. And that doesn't prevent Congress from trying to codify H-4 EAD. But something to just keep an eye out for is if these regulations come up, and the EAD, the H-4 EAD, was on the regulatory agenda many times during the Trump administration. Just couldn't get through the hurdles. Make your comments. Talk to your congressman. Make your comments on the thing, so they have to address them. But yeah, something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, I see that, previously Trump administration did install biometrics for even 4-year-old kids who were extending their H-4 visas. I've had also they did this I-944 form, which was like 18 pages form for public charges. They were just, I don't know why they need a public charge for employment-based immigration, where the guy already has a job of $100,000 plus. They did install all those things. They had a lot of RFEs on the specialty occupation. They said if the level 1 prevailing wage may not be qualified for the H-1B at all. They had increased FDNS visit. They had increased visa bans, travel bans, mandatory I-485 interviews, very many H-1B denials, suspension of the premium processing. What do you expect this administration coming in January 20th?
Yeah, so one thing I'm really cautious about right away is the visa bans or the entry bans. If you go back and look at the first Trump administration in 2017, his inauguration day is January 20th, 2017. January 27th, 2017, 7 days later, the Muslim ban comes out. Now, this was predominantly a ban from 7 countries, as well as some other matters that were involved that prevented entry or visa issuance. If you step into the Trump, Stephen Miller shoes on this, there is a realm of possibility where they have a complete visa bar, at least until they say, hey, the Biden administration's been all open borders, so we're going to look at everything and we're going to vet it. We're going to go bring back extreme vetting, so we're going to look at it before we let people in. So, if at all possible, I would like people to be here by January 20th to avoid that possibility. I could see an increase of 221Gs at the consulate. I think those things are very easy for the administration to do early and cause problems. Whether they are successful in court or not, we'll see, but they could mess with a lot of people's life early. Increase in RFEs, one of the big problems with the administration, the first go around, was the deference memo. USCIS historically has given deference to prior approvals, meaning, hey, if USCIS has approved a case, we kind of think the next one that's all the same details is approvable too. And instead, what the Trump administration did is say, we're going to rescind that. You don't have to give deference. Every case is going to be redone as if it's brand new. And that creates delays, RFEs, denials for really no reason at all. So something to keep an eye on. And then, like you said, the mandatory 485 interviews, I don't think that accomplishes much other than to slow things down on the green card side. To what extent, the visa bulletin isn't already doing that, right? But I could see more 485 interviews happening, that's for sure.
I just want to clarify for the people to understand what does the law and what does the regulation means. Law is the one that is passed by the parliament, which in United States we call it as Congress. That means it's passed by the House of Representatives, the Senate, and then signed by the President of the United States. Regulations are they're issued by the government, but they have to go through the process. It has to screen. There are a lot of screening process. It has to go through the process, and once the process is done, they can issue the regulations. So the regulations cannot contradict the law. But regulations can, sometimes create EADs or take EADs off too, if it's not provided in the legislation. Then there comes the executive order. That is, the administration can unilaterally, without going through the regulatory process, can issue an executive order Obama administration has issued an executive order to give 1 million people green card who are, we call it as DACA kids, who are not legally present in the United States. Now, of course, we know the policy of Trump administration is not in favor of the immigrants, particularly those people who are illegal immigrants. Of course, most of our audiences are not, if none of our audiences are illegal audiences, most of them are perfectly paying taxes, present in the country, and staying legally in this country. But there will be some policies that will affect negatively ours, which is what we were been discussing. The question that is coming out was, Stephen, by Kritesh Jain, was that can the policies come back which requires a contract agreement, statement of work, and other issues, which Trump administration has bought all those things. And then, of course, there was a court case that was what? Can you explain, can the Trump administration bring it back again, requiring everybody to have the statement of work and also contract agreement?
Yeah, so this is something I am very much intrigued in because we saw this early on. So, boy, we could almost go a whole hour on this topic, but let me start with this. One thing to think about before we get into all these regulations. One of the biggest downfalls of the Trump administration the first go around was the inability to get confirmed cabinet level positions. And so a lot of regulations that went through, these memos that came out, whatever, an easy way for these judges to strike them down is the appointments clause, where they said this person does not properly have the authority to do what they're doing. The difference we're going to see in Trump 2, at least the first couple of years, is the Senate is controlled by his party. And unless he really is irritating some people with his nominations, he's not going to have acting secretary so-and-so or senior official performing the duties of. He's going to have confirmed positions, which means they're going to have these judges are going to have to get into the weeds rather than just the appointments clause. When we talk about the 2018 memo that led to short approvals, that led to denials because you don't have contracts for every layer, which is, again, silly. I think they could try it. It can go through a better regulatory process. One of the big issues that came about was that those came out through memo rather than going through the administrative process where there's notice and comment. Now, the question is do those regulations, let's say they do come out, jive with the Immigration and Nationality Act? And if you guys remember, and anybody that follows me, we've had a lot of talks the last little bit about Chevron deference and deferring and kind of giving some credit to the agencies when they're making rules. That's kind of gone. Now, there's still some deference given, but Loper Bright cuts both ways. And so we're going to have to see if these regulations actually are aligned with the with the statute, with what Congress said, because regulations are only supposed to interpret congressional, what Congress said. It's only supposed to interpret statute. So I could see them going through the regulatory process for these things. How I think it'll be a little bit different because the litigation was really focused on, this is a memo. It's freaking not gone through any proper process. Now it'll be more of a fight about procedure as well as does it align with the INA.
What about the consulting companies placing individuals at the third party, like Deloitte placing individuals at, let's say, Coca-Cola Company? Would Trump administration make any effort to ban it?
I mean, they tried. They tried to make it very difficult, not outright ban it, but they tried to make it very difficult. Again, I don't know what's going on in Steve Miller's head. I don't know what's going on in Donald Trump's head. Rahul, I was given some hope. I did a podcast with another group, and it was an Indian national guy who's here, been on H-1B, and he said, one of the things that gives some positivity is if Trump listens to Elon Musk on high-skilled immigration rather than, Stephen Miller. And We know Tesla, SpaceX, they use H-1B, and maybe we'll see some listening to Elon rather than some of the others. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, one thing I'm a bit concerned about Elon Musk that you said was that could they make provisions that would favor the top 10 companies
Yeah.
or top 50 companies, and the rest of the companies cannot be able to use it? For example, the third placing individuals at the third party, Elon Musk employees don't go and work in Apple. It's the Deloitte companies and it's the small companies where they do go work in Apple, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, AT&T, you name all the companies. So I'm a bit worried. I'm not
Well,
that
and they
happy.
tried, wage-based H-1B lottery, got it struck down, not on the merits, but because of the appointments clause issue. And one of the big problems with that, I'm all for it. Go get paid. Go get paid as much as you can. I want people, to make their money. But if businesses can't afford your services, it's going to cause businesses to shutter, which is going to have impacts down the line, right? So not every entity can pay a level 4 wage. So we'll see. We'll see how things go. I could tell you, Rahul, one thing I think is interesting, I think from my end, is that I think we're a little bit more prepared for this administration. We've done it once. We know a little bit about litigation now, right? We've been doing that quite a bit, delays, denials, policy challenges. And a lot of immigration attorneys have done more of that. And it's not going to be as reactive. We've got to learn. We can be ready to bring this fight if we need to on the Trump administration.
Somebody's asking a question with regards to, I filed my adjustment of status. Can the administration do anything negative for the people who are in adjustment of status? A couple of things. If there is any gaps in the unemployment, previously it was risky. Right now, he can make it absolutely not possible to have any gaps in the employment. This question was coming from Vaibhav Tyagi. Right now, the EAD and advanced parole approvals are given for 5 years by the Biden administration. They may cut it down short to only 1 year. So every time you have to apply for the renewal. One of the other things is the 540-day rule, Stephen, that if the EAD expires and you file an extension, the 540-day rule, which he may cut short, is one of the things that I'm thinking about going forward, the administration can do. Now, why does the Trump administration does it? Because anything what they can, there are certain things legally they have to issue an EAD. The administration does not have an authority of not issuing an EAD for the people who file the 485 application. Now, in situations where the administration is forced to give, the Trump administration always try to delay or put hurdles in getting the approval. We have seen that between 2016 and 2020. We have seen between 2017 and 2020. We have seen that one. We may see that again, and that's the reason why we want to prepare.
If I could go back to something on the 485 that you had mentioned. So in a sane world, no, not much. I mean, you look, they're stuck with the INA, but I was in argument here in the Fifth Circuit, and a lot of people have said, well, the Biden administration hasn't been much better, and we were challenging some policies related to adjustment of status. It's up at the Supreme Court right now. And one of the judges, the Fifth Circuit judges, Don Willett, says, well, you guys are told you at CIS, the attorney representing them, you say we should not have any jurisdiction over this case. We as judges shouldn't be able to review it because everything related to adjustment of status is in the attorney general's discretion. How far does that discretion go? And he asked, he said, could you, as an agency, decide we're not going to adjust status for Catholics? Can you, as an agency, decide we're not going to adjust status for people from Africa? And the U.S. attorney said, well, Judge, we would never. We would never do it. He said, I'm not asking would you. Would that be within your discretion? what is how far does that go? Yeah. Well, and the U.S. attorney said, yes, we have discretion to do whatever we want in adjustment of status. That is their interpretation under the Biden administration of the INA. So, we're seeing some of these arguments that, again, I don't want to panic people because we didn't see, Raul, a huge, giant increase in adjustment of status denials under Trump 1, right? But I'm telling you, what they're arguing in the Biden administration is also going to give them a roadmap.
One question that is coming, this is bothering a lot of people, is what about denaturalization that they are talking about, project of denaturalization when Trump is power. At this point of time, in all the speeches that I've heard of Trump, though, he didn't said anything denaturalization. He only spoke about going forward, though. Now, however, the advisor that he's appointing, which is Stephen Miller, definitely is on the path. He wants to get denaturalized going back, though. But at this point of time, I would say that no, they are not going to do it. And it's very unlikely to meet the challenges of the challenges in the court, where to denaturalize you may have to go to everybody to go to the district court and get it done. But that's very unlikely right now.
I looked it up when I saw this pop up. The ACLU and Immigrant Resource Legal Center put something out from 1990 to 2017. There were 11 denaturalization cases brought each year. Trump administrations pretty early brought 1,600 in 2018 was their intention. They had 95 in 2017. So not really huge numbers. Now, they have to initiate denaturalization proceedings, and this has to go to a federal court, civil proceedings, or as a result of a criminal conviction. And it's not a low bar where they're just like, Rahul, I don't like your tie. Denaturalization, all right? Adjustment of status, they argue they can do that. Denaturalization is a significantly higher bar for them to do. It's not bippity boppity denaturalization. It's going to be in front of a judge, and there's got to be some compelling evidence. Again, I'd have to go back and see how many they actually did, and obviously, a lot of stress on people having these referred, but we'll have to see.
I mean, what I've seen, the denaturalization cases, old cases where people who worked in Nazis and then killed the Jews, and then they lied on their application, they didn't commit any crime. People who are terrorists are people who are with high crimes, though, and they did lied on the green card application, they did lie in the naturalization certificate, and the USCIS finds later on, that's where they have seen them going back and doing it.
There's four main provisions for denaturalization. If it was illegally procured or concealed or willful misrepresentation to get your naturalization, naturalization fraud on a criminal side, wartime military service where you're discharged other than honorable conditions, and a remnant from the Cold War, refusing to testify before congressional activity on alleged subversive activities, when they were having communism and the Red Scare. So this isn't a, one DUI and you are going to put into denaturalization. It's very strict in the INA, and would have to have Congress make a lot of changes.
What people can do at this point of time? We suggest you guys use the letters that we're using right now to pass the EAGLE Act, and this is the time for the people to pass the EAGLE Act right now, because hey, this can still be done in the Biden administration. Biden administration is going to be there until January 20th of 2025. So we have drafted letters for it. We've also recommended Biden administration to grant EAD and AP for the people whose I-140 has been approved. We also recommended Biden administration to not count the family members all these links we have provided at the bottom of this video, you guys can use it to write the letters, because this is the time for you to write the letters. We have been holding these things for a while, but this is the time. Yeah, I mean, I know the new administration is coming, but at all times, it is this period of time that we have seen anything happening.
This lame duck session is important because you have people that are no longer up for re-election that are willing to, hey, I don't care. I don't have to care anymore. I don't have to politic. You have people who are out the door who don't have to care. And I know people are tired of hearing it, Raul, but it isn't time to rest on the laurels and think election's over, politicking's over. I don't know how much is going to get done in the next few months, but things can still be pushed. I can tell you, I've been in meetings with congressional representatives who have expressed interest in trying to make things more modern and not having to run an election. They can do more things right now.
Questions that are coming on. Can the prevailing wage increase? Can they increase the prevailing wage? Yes. The question that is coming, hey, they don't have a Senate in the hands of the Republicans. No, they do have the majority of the Senate. However, you may be right, Karthik, that it requires 60 votes because of the filibuster rule, where to pass through the Senate, it has to have a 60 votes. But hey, who knows? They may get rid of the filibuster too.
You can also go about it a couple other ways. Remember, 2022, we see massive EB5 reform, and that came in, the RIA came in through, in other bills, it kind of got tacked in.
Yeah. And then especially when they include the bill in the finance bill, Stephen, then it doesn't come under the filibuster rule. It only requires a simple majority. So if this whole thing is presented as a finance bill, it's going to be very tough. I mean, it may pass through.
The RIA for EB5 was part of the Appropriations Act. So it's the finance of 2022. So again, there's ways. It doesn't have to be a standalone, Eagle Act, and that's the only thing we're raising our hands for. It can be in other things.
Can the Trump administration cancel the automatic EAD extension, which is expiring on September 25th of 2025?
Yeah, that's a temporary final rule as it is for the 540 days. So that is set to expire in September 2025. I don't see it really getting impacted before then, just with what the regulatory process would have to look like. I think it would be a waste of Trump administration energy, personally, for them to say, well, we're going to go through this 4 or 5 month long, 6 month long administrative process to get rid of something that's gone in 9 months anyway.
Definitely wants to ban the lottery system of the lottery green cards. I don't know how he's going to do it, but that's not most of our audiences would like to know much about it. That's not big advantage for us because it's not coming, those wasted green cards are not going to come into employment based. It's only the family based green cards that are going to come in. If he tries to, one thing people are asking, Stephen, is that, hey, he said he's going to give the green card, staple it along with the degree.
Yeah, if you believe that, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona to send you. He started walking that back 12 hours later. The next morning, his advisors got into his ear, and he was already putting out statements like, well, maybe not so much. Again, look, we do not know, period. I am not Donald Trump. I am not in meetings with him. The closest I've ever come to interacting with him is I've been to New York City once, a couple times, right? I got family up there. I do not know which way the winds will blow, and he can be very fickle and decide today he's going to do this and tomorrow he's the opposite. I don't think he could just staple green cards onto degrees without Congress. If he wants to go that route, I applaud him though. But we'll see. I don't think with who he is surrounding himself with, I don't have a lot of high hope yet.
Yeah, the people whom he's surrounding with, Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, and all these people that he is getting appointed to these people, doesn't give any indication that he is going towards the right path for the employment-based immigration, though. That's all. Can it be a surprise thing, Stephen? Hey, you know what Reagan did? Reagan did speak a lot of anti-immigration when he stood for election, but hey, he did the most legalization process than any other president. He's the Republican, and the only president in the past 40 years or 50 years that Trump ever does refer as a good person, at least until now, is Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, it is, and one other way to think about this is, for better or for worse, the southern border is a mess. And it needs, I think the administration is going to be very focused on that. That's what they campaigned on, Raul. They campaigned on the border and the border crisis, as they call it. And it's very possible they leave a lot of high-skilled immigration alone and focus on that and kind of wear themselves out. Or like you said, they could decide, okay, we're going to bring everybody to the table. Trump is the great, negotiator, wrote The Art of the Deal, right? And we're going to bring together, we're going to give the Democrats a little bit. We're going to give the Republicans a little bit. We're going to come up with some kind of compromise, just like Ronald Reagan did with amnesty, right? And again, is that something that if I had to go bet on, I would say is going to happen? No. But is it in the possible outcomes? Yeah.
When the anti-immigration agenda will come in, will it come on day one? Yeah, it definitely will come on day one. We don't know what aspects will be there in the day one. The southern border, definitely, as Stephen has pointed out, most of all of our audiences will agree that yes, the southern border should be controlled. We can't allow people just walking without papers into the United States without going through the immigration system. Most of the people agreed, and even some Democrats are siding with Trump, including Hillary, has gone out and commented that, hey, it's Democratic Party has been hijacked by the left-wing people, and that's the reason why they lost. Especially not controlling the border in the South is definitely not a good thing at all. The Democrats may agree on some things. Yes, we will be expecting immigration is the top priority for this administration. I would say, if not, that is the number one priority for this administration. So there will be things coming right on January 20th, if not by January 20th, in the month of January 20th. Will the effective date, some of the things will be immediately, some of the things will be a little bit later. We have to see how they are going to word it. As Stephen has pointed out, the best he has been in a city where Trump Tower is there. That's the best thing he has done. Well, in my case, I've attended one of his public meetings when he had with Narendra Modi in Howdy Modi in Texas. That's the best I've been, but we don't know much about it. We have to keep looking into it. We want you guys keep coming to these calls, these sessions, because we'll have more interaction. And we'll get more update on the things. So,
and we're also going to be prepared
keep
for
writing
more
the letters.
We're going to be prepared for more last minute, all of a sudden Tuesday afternoon, Friday afternoon, lives too. So just subscribe, keep an eye out.
Stephen, the questions that are coming out is, hey, last time when the COVID happened, because the Trump administration didn't use the family immigration, hey, those things all came and fell into the lap of the employment-based. This guy, Trump administration, is not a fan of family immigration, which he thinks is a chain immigration. Could it be that he put some things out there to hamper the chances for the family immigration, and those things will come into the lap of the employment-based immigration?
You could. I think 2020 was very unique because COVID shut down all the consulates, right? Because of COVID, and a lot of family-based cases are consular process, and so there's a lot of spillover. Could the administration do a few things? One, they could slow down processing even more somehow at the consulates, unfortunately, which would allow for more spillover, as well as, if there is some sort of visa ban, that could impact things as well. So, again, I don't want bad things to happen, so good things happen. COVID was very unique, but we will see how things go with what he does. Again, I do have high expectations from some sort of visa ban early on.
And what are things people can do once this administration comes in? First thing is that you need to be aware of the immigration rules very frequently. The best thing I would suggest is keep coming here every week. A couple of things: file the extensions way early. And if you can get the extension result before your I-94 expires, please get it. Let's say, for example, if your H-1B is expiring in May of 2025, file it right now and file it in premium processing. That's the best thing. Don't file it in the month of April and normal processing and wait until June, because if you get a denial, what will happen is that then you have to leave the country. If you file an extension right now and you get the denial before May, you get one more opportunity to file the extension. Those are some of the things that you can easily do it. And don't, and people are asking with regards to the day one CPTs. One thing, day one CPTs were never legal at all. These day one CPT universities are never legal. And we definitely think so that there will be action taken on day one CPT universities. It's already been in the attention of the advisors of the Trump administration, because we did speak with some of the, Brett Batt is one of the right-wing newspaper or magazines, and they are pretty aware of this day one CPTs, and they are the advisors for the Trump administration. So definitely day one CPT universities are in danger since the Trump administration comes in. Right. Let's go to some question.
Visa bulletin. I've seen a couple questions on that. Not unsurprising to see a very little movement. I think we saw, and I mistweeted earlier saying it was a month. It was 2 weeks. It went into the next month for EB2, and I think about a week for EB3, one or the other. Not wholly surprised on this. Starting last year, they kind of moved things quarterly, Rahul. We saw that last fiscal year. The next visa bulletin for January will, I think, kind of be telling. But we don't expect a ton of movement anyway, based off the numbers. We've talked about that before, but yeah, not. I was surprised to see the 3 total weeks of movement that we did, to be honest with you.
Prashant is asking this question: are there any spending bills due in the lame duck session? There'll be a lot of bills that will be passed in the lame duck session, guys. Believe me, irrespective of Democrats got a big hit, very bad. They're going to pass a lot of legislation within this period of time if they can. And there are sometimes, there will be an agreement between the Republicans and the Democrats to pass the bills, because not only, as Stephen has pointed out, that some people will not come to elections again. For example, Biden is not going to contest in the elections again. At least that's my estimate.
Trump's done. He's not running again.
Yeah, well, Constitution can be amended.
I guess I'm wrong there, but yeah,
it is not. The Congress can amend it. It's just the Congress, right? So that can be done.
States can do it too. But we'll see. One of the questions I just had is about possible changes to EB5. There's a couple things that I would think. One, we did a lot of law change 2022. So we're kind of stuck. They've got the law that they're with. We could see more FDNS visits on EB5. FDNS is built into the IPO with EB5. We could see more, how they interpret source of funds and all that. I don't think we're going to see a ton of EB5 changes. And Rahul, one of the things I think is going to be interesting to see, and this is something I know you and I've talked about before, is EB1. The Biden administration did a big push, right? AI, emerging technologies. We want to be the global leader in this. And I think what's interesting is maybe there's some more scrutiny, but that's something the Trump administration wants too. They want our immigration system, and their vision should only be the best and brightest. And that's the EB1 folks. Number two, Trump is always wanting to beat China, right? That's always the number one thing he wants to do is beat China. How do you do that? You become a global leader in AI and these emerging technologies. So maybe we see some more scrutiny on these EB1s, but I don't think we're going to see them say, oh, no more, EB1s for technology, because it's something I think that the two sides align on.
One thing I have to tell that I think so that EB5 will not have more restrictions, so it will be more easier is what I think so. EB1 definitely is something that I'm not sure. I may be neutral. I'm just neutral on it. I don't think there will be more restrictions, especially for the AI and other data science and other things. I'm not expecting more restriction. The other thing was that there was a proposed regulation by the Biden administration to allow the H-1B employees to be self-employed by starting their own company. I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting that to be passed once either Biden administration can pass it in this lame duck session, or it doesn't have to go to the parliament anyway. Or even when the Trump administration comes in, I don't think so he is going to put any restriction on self-employment or the entrepreneurs forming their own companies and filing their H-1Bs, is what I am thinking about Trump.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's going to, he's a business guy, right? He likes seeing the investors. He likes seeing this. I could tell you anecdotally, there are some Trump allies that own EB5 regional centers. Okay. So just, we'll see where things go. Maybe I'm a little bit more bullish than others. We'll see.
People are asking, hey, how is it that it's only going to be southern border? Why not it is going to be Canada? Yeah, they are going to put restrictions Canada too. But hey, the number of illegal people coming from the southern border is definitely more than what they are coming from the northern border. The other problem is that the Mexico border is only 2,000 miles. The Canadian border is more than 5,000 miles. So it's very hard for the people to monitor 5,000 miles. Remember, there are two borders with Canada. One is Alaska, is a part of United States. So that's a whole border too, if you were to count that one. And then you count the southern border, both of them combined together is more than 5,000 miles. That's going to be very tough. Yeah, he's going to put some emphasis on the northern border, but I think so he's going to put more emphasis on the southern border rather than on the northern border.
Yeah, that's what's in the news, right? It's what he's campaigned on.
Right. Are there any expected changes for the DOL? Not expecting much changes for the DOL. Could there be any restrictions on consulting companies filing a labor certification, Stephen?
I don't know how you do that though, because the way everything is set up by law, maybe they get pickier with this unintended, or these, random locations you can put in. But we didn't really see that much in the first Trump administration, not even on the radar for the green card side.
Yeah, the question is coming with regards to the STEM extension. Definitely, STEM extension is on the menu of the Trump administration. It's there on its menu. So whether it's going to be restricting or completely taking off, it's there on the menu. Now, is it on the top priority? No, the top priority definitely is the controlling the southern border, and it definitely taking the birthright citizenship off is on the top of the menu. But yeah, right somewhere at the bottom of the menu is the STEM extension too.
But yeah, I think the big thing I'd recommend, and I did a podcast with some folks earlier or last week, just stay informed, have good sources, whether it's Twitter, Reddit, following our, social media, YouTube. I'd recommend following other attorneys too. There might be something that I don't catch, or we don't catch. Just try to stay as informed as you can throughout this. Information is power on this. So stay informed and make plans.
Do you see an impact in visa issuance in the consulates? Yes, definitely. Definitely it's going to come through. There will be more denials coming in. There'll be more 221Gs coming in. There'll be more delays coming in. That's our expected when the administration is going to come in. Stamping pilot program, stamping in USA. I'm not sure. I have a mixed feeling whether Trump administration is going to bring the jobs here in the United States instead of having the jobs outside the country. Though he may, I think so. I don't know. I have a mixed.
I have mixed feelings if the Biden administration's ever going to do a dang thing about it. I mean, the pilot program has gone pretty well, and we still don't have a finalized.
One thing is it's going to speed up the stamping process, which Trump administration doesn't want it. But
it's true, but it also brings it more into control, into DC's control rather than individual consulates. The Department of State takes the opinion that even the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, right now has no power to overturn a visa denial by a consular officer. That's what consular non-reviewability means. Judges can't do it. Even Antony Blinken can't do it. But if you bring it more in power, it allows, them to staff that how they want.
These questions were coming from Ashok Pisal from Facebook, and Ashish Karodkar from the Facebook. Another person, Abhishek from Facebook, is asking this question. Hey, is it better to go to India and get the stamping and come back before the administration comes in? Well, stampings are not available that quick right now. So I don't know how you can go and come back before the administration comes in. There's another thing that you need to observe is that the mentality of the officer changes when the election results come in, especially when it's one-sided, though. It's the mentality of the officers. They will say, okay, the public has now given an authority for me to restrict the immigration. That's how the mentality of the people will come in once the results come in. So yeah, it's going to start coming in. It's not going to be like Trump administration comes in, the officer immediately changes the mind. It's going to be based on the mandate of the people. The government officer changes their opinion on granting or not granting. Anything else, Stephen?
No, again, just try to stay informed. And again, we don't know. I mean, I know it sounds really, really negative. I think what we are doing as attorneys is looking at what happened the first time and looking at the people he surrounds himself with. I know there are a lot of people in the backlog community who think maybe this is going to be a good thing. I don't necessarily share that view, but I appreciate where people are coming from. So just stay informed.
Vimal and Vikram are asking the question, will they bring down the threshold of the investment amount, which is 900,000, I guess? I don't know.
No, that's statutory.
Yeah.
And that's statutory, and it increases every few years.
Yeah, they may increase it because there are a number of people who wanting to invest more than that are there. So definitely it's even the new administration is not going to try to pass a legislation to reduce it. We're not expecting that. We'll be bringing more updates, guys, as the things are heated up right now. It's not just Tuesday. We took a little bit time for bringing an update after the last Tuesday because we want to analyze more how the administration want to behave instead of immediately react, because we want to study whom he's appointing for the Department of Homeland Security, whom his advisors are, how the things are going on. We want to observe those things. Emily was busy taking care of other things in our office. So we two partners are here, me and Steven. This question is coming from Zoomer. Anything else?
I've been busy coaching, so I haven't been able to get on a Facebook Live. I've been coaching Pee Wee football on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons, so it's good to get back on here.
Thank you guys for tuning in. The next will come and join and keep tuned in. And if you want to speak with me, Steven, or anybody else in our office, our appointments are there. Our schedule is there. You can just block a time that's suitable to you. Thank you very much.